Hi, everyone. We have just another minute or two. We'll wait for some other lunchtime participants to join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, looks like we have everybody. Thank you for joining me. I am Xaña Winans. I'm the owner and CEO of Golden Proportions Marketing. We are a full service dental marketing agency. And I'm glad you're joining me today because I have a lot of great information for you. Today, we are going to be talking about for your marketing to new patients, what are the 6 steps to a very successful strategy? So the reason that many of you have joined me for this webinar today, and I've done this just 2 weeks ago and 2 weeks before that, is because so many practices right now feel like they are on a roller coaster. There is zero predictability when it comes to the number of patients that are coming in, how consistently your schedule is booked, what your production and collections look like. And that's not always a fun place to be, even though I personally love roller coasters. I'm not sure I'd want to live on one 24/7. So the big question is, how the heck did you get here? Well, we can blame it somewhat on COVID. That's definitely a key part of it, but there's some other things that kind of got in the way along the way that are very fixable. The first one is because you guys are only human. Any of you that know me know that I am married to a dentist. I was married to him when he was in dental school, and I know the little bits of business education that many of you were given when you were in dental school, and I'm talking little bits. And they expect you to not only be a brilliant clinician, but also to run a business. And that means you have a lot of things demanding your attention, from deciding how to manage and recruit and grow your employees, how to grow your practice, doing clinical dentistry for your patients, running the finances and insurance of the practice. There's just a lot of components. And when you're juggling that many things, it's really easy to lose track of a couple of them to focus on the things that are most urgent for you right now. So definitely not your fault. Juggling happens to all of us, and it's easy to drop some balls. Another reason you could be on this roller coaster is whatever marketing you've done, sometimes dentists and practices don't give it enough time. It takes time to mature, and we're actually going to be talking about what kind of timelines it takes to get the results that you're expecting. Another reason this happens is practices change tactics too frequently. They are looking for those immediate results, and therefore they are making U-turns just before a process or a tactic has had the time to mature to really demand the results that you need. Also, shiny object syndrome. I see this a lot in practices because there's a lot of great ideas out there. And with as busy as you are, it's easy to assume that there is one holy grail that is going to fix everything for you. If you could only find that one thing, that would take a lot off of your plate. The problem is that these shiny objects are essentially perpetuated by this guy, Zuckerberg. And I only blame Zuckerberg, not personally, but because he is the founder of Facebook and social media in general. And there are huge numbers of dental specific groups on Facebook, which are great as a community. But what happens is that these groups often create an atmosphere where doctors just start throwing questions out, and they take whatever answer is delivered by somebody else in the group as this must be the right answer, which often causes them to be jumping from tactic to tactic. So these groups can be great resources, but they can also be a great source of distractions. So the end result for your practice is that you've got this roller coaster. You've got high months and low months, a very unpredictable open schedule. Your take home pay is not guaranteed unless you are truly running your practice in a profit first type of system. You are going to have very volatile collections, and often doctors pay themselves last. It also means there's a lot of wasted time, but wasted money. And I don't know anyone who wants to waste money. You spend a lot of time chasing that shiny object, and all of this results in very stagnant practice growth and very stagnant new patient growth. So this is where most of you want to go. It doesn't seem particularly exciting, but it's safe, it's secure, and it's definitely going to get you where you want to go. That escalator of a nice, smooth ride to the top of consistent practice growth, consistent new patients, consistent production and collections that makes everybody's life a lot more enjoyable. So let's talk about how you get there. There are 6 steps to your success. The first is setting your goals and establishing some baseline metrics. The second is budgeting. The third is determining your strategies and tactics, which are 2 different things. We'll talk about that. Determining your timelines, actually implementing the strategies and tactics, and then finally measuring and adjusting what it is you've been doing with your marketing to get the maximum return on investment. Let's start with the goal setting and baseline metrics. So Tony Robbins says that setting goals are the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. I couldn't agree more. If a goal is written down, you're actually 93% more likely to achieve the goal by literally writing it down, such a simple thing, and having it visible. So determining with your goals what you really want. There's a couple of things that you can do to figure those out. So one is I often ask clients, what's the most important problem that you can act on right now? This is basically an example of what's known as Pareto's principle, which is really where our 80-20 rule comes from. What is the one thing that you can do that is causing 80% of your problems that you, if you fix it, will give you 80% of your results that you are looking for? Also, I ask people, what are the 3 biggest unfinished business items that will impact your practice growth? Things that have been on your to-do list for years and years that you've only made partial progress through. Asking them, what are the 3 biggest aspirations for your practice? What is that vision for the future and where it is you're trying to go? And you might be doing some current marketing, but it's important to ask yourself, how do I want the results of any of these particular strategies to be different by the end of this year or this time next year? And then ultimately, I love this question because it allows us to think very freely. What would you do if money were absolutely no object at all? And that means that you can get really creative with what it is that you could do to be growing your practice. And I promise you can come up with some great ideas. So when you are creating your goals, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the idea of SMART goals. This is important. So as a reminder, the acronym SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable, as in something that you can actually do, realistic, and time bound. So let's look at some examples of the types of goals that we commonly hear when we ask a doctor, what do you want to accomplish with your marketing? We tend to get these types of answers. I want more new patients. Well, of course you do. We all do. I want a better quality of patient. Sure, you don't want those one hits who just come in for an emergency exam and they leave again. You want a patient who's going to stay in your practice, who's going to bring recurring revenue to you. You might want to increase your treatment plan acceptance or to get more Invisalign cases. These are all good goals, but the problem is they are not SMART goals, which means they're very difficult for you to measure the success of whether or not you actually accomplish this goal. So let's break these down and look at a vague goal and how do we turn it into a SMART goal. The first one, I want more new patients. For example, to make it smart, you could say, I want to average 30 new patients a month by the last quarter of 2021. That is definitely specific. It is measurable because you know the quantity of patients. It's actionable. It's something you can start on right now. It's realistic because we're not saying I want 30 new patients a month starting tomorrow, especially if you had, say, 10 new patients a month right now. That might not be realistic to expect that leap in 1 month. And it is time bound because we know it is by the end of the year. Another example is I want that better quality of patient. Another way to look at that might be to say, okay, I'm going to specifically target market my practice to these 3 very specific high income zip codes that are around me where I know I'm going to see a better quality of patient that's coming in. A third example of that vague goal was I want patients to accept more treatment. Maybe your SMART goal is I want to close 50% of the treatment that I've diagnosed in 2021. And then finally, this fourth vague goal, I want more Invisalign cases. Be specific. I want to start, not just see, but I want to start 25 Invisalign cases by the end of the year. Simply taking these from vague goals to SMART goals, and again, writing them down, means that you have metrics to measure them against to say, did I or didn't I accomplish this goal? And it lets you know where you need to focus your attention. Now, just because you have set these goals does not necessarily mean that these are the goals you're going to end up with. I always ask our doctors to kind of evaluate these against some baseline metrics. So, for example, when you said, I want to average 30 new patients a month by the last quarter of 2021, the first thing you need to do is look and see how many new patients a month did you average in 2020? Is your goal realistic? Or are you willing to invest the amount of money that it's going to take to make this major shift that you might be looking for? From baseline metrics, if you're trying to target market to 3 very specific zip codes, the first thing I want you to do is go into your patient database and say, how many of my new patients or even existing patients came from those particular zip codes in the past year? And let's look at the production for them. Are they truly high producing patients that you're seeing? And are you getting enough of them? Are these patients realistically going to be driving to your practice from these 3 particular zip codes? Unfortunately, in this world, we know that patients are still very much driven by what is convenient for them. So we need to look at this realistically. Another example that I want to close 50% of my treatment that's diagnosed in 2021. Well, you need to go in and find out exactly what your treatment plan conversion rate looks like right now. And I don't mean a ballpark guess. Let's actually go in and get the numbers. And then finally, if your goal, your SMART goal was to start 25 new Invisalign cases by the end of this year, ask yourself and find out how many Invisalign cases did you close and start in 2021. Or another way to look at it might be, how many patients did you refer out for orthodontics that you actually could have treated in-house with Invisalign? Perhaps this is a new skill for you. So looking at that reality check lets us know if these are reasonable. So if you've got what you thought was reality and it turns out to be fantasy because these goals feel unrealistic, there's a couple things you can do. The first is you might say, I want to gradually increase this goal. So, for example, if your goal is to have 30 new patients a month, maybe you say that the first month I want to move from 10 to 12, and the second month I want to move from 12 to 14, and then to 16, so that you are adding gradually and you're not looking at yourself as a complete failure for failing to hit that 30 new patients a month for the first 9 months until you actually get closer to it at the end of the year. That acceleration can help you feel successful and motivate you to keep rolling. Another option is to just dramatically increase your marketing budget. The more money you put at a problem, it is definitely going to get you more leads and more opportunities. Some other opportunities, sometimes there's just too many goals and it's easy to dilute things and stretch yourself too thin. I would rather see you go all in on 1 or 2 goals. In our agency, we call it the critical few. And really focus on that critical few. Do it well. Make it become just a part of how you run your practice. And once you learn how to do that and it becomes a consistent thing that you don't even think about, it's just how you operate, then you can move on to the next critical goal and accomplish it. And I promise you're going to feel a lot better about your results this way. Or you could start to incentivize your team, get everybody completely committed, and incentives really do help. Let them be laser focused on everyone trying to accomplish a particular goal. So set some targets for them, incentivize them. Everybody wins in this scenario. Now, before you start doing any of your marketing, you have to build your dashboard. And there's 2 things I want you to look at for any one of your goals. One is a leading metric and one is a lagging metric. So for example, a leading metric might be how many visitors came to your website that were new visitors, because we know we need new visitors to the website in order to ultimately result in the lagging metric that we want, new patient calls. But you need to have that comparison. If you're simply looking at the number of new patients that come in, but you don't necessarily know what are the things that are influencing those new patients to come in, you don't have a good correlation to say, is one impacting the other the way that I need it to be? So you want to have both of those, a leading and a lagging for each one of your goals on your dashboard. Now, document your baselines for where you are right now, and we're going to come back and document these again before we actually launch a strategy. And then you can delegate. Assign this to a team member so that they are going to track and document what you're doing every week and every month. They can report on it. That's something that you can get off of your plate and still keep track of. You can use software, things like Dental Intel, other platforms that allow you to set goals or track your metrics, or you can literally put it in a spreadsheet. I don't care which one you do as long as you track it. Writing it down makes it real, and keeping it reported on a weekly or a monthly basis keeps you laser focused on, are we hitting this target? And if we're not, why? So let's talk about the second step to get you to success, and that is budgeting. Um, it's fair to have a budget. We don't all have bottomless pits of money. Like I said, I am married to a dentist. I know what it takes to run a practice. We cannot expect that anybody just has wide open faucet when it comes to money. So here's some good guidelines for how to budget. If you are an extremely mature practice, you just have exactly what you want already. You have a steady number of new patients coming in. You are going to need to invest a little bit in marketing, probably about 2 to 3%, if only because it's a national statistics that about 8% of the American population moves every single year. So you can expect a certain amount of attrition simply because someone no longer lives in your area. They took a job in another location. Or it could be that some of your older patients may have passed on. So you always need to keep refilling the funnel. You're going to need some baseline investment in marketing just to keep the phones ringing. Now, if you are ready to ramp things up and start getting some consistent growth, but you want that steady growth, you don't need this rocket acceleration, then 3 to 5% of your collections every year is perfect. That's ideal. However, if you are ready, just as I say, strap a rocket to this practice so that it can grow crazy, crazy fast, you're going to need to invest. And we're looking at probably 6 to 10%. So some of this is about getting you to manage your expectations for what is realistic versus what is actually, what your goal is versus what you can afford. Now, we also deal with quite a number of small to mid-sized DSOs. If you're a DSO that's watching this, I typically recommend if you have one brand that covers multiple locations in a single market, meaning that they're all under the same practice name, you can get away with a smaller budget, probably around that 3 to 5%, because you have incredible leverage. Your dollars go farther because they are advertising for every single location across the board. If you are a scratch practice or you have acquired a new practice or you're a DSO that's acquiring a new one, I usually say for that particular location, the first year, you obviously can't base anything as a percentage of collections simply because you might not have had any collections. So you're going to want a very aggressive budget for 1 year. You'll get your foundational assets, you're going to get your website, you'll get your marketing set up, you'll start getting the phone to ring. By the time you've hit the end of the first year, you can usually ratchet that back to a somewhere, in that 3 to 5 or 6 to 10%, depending on where the practice is at the time. Now, when it comes to money, there's 3 different buckets that your marketing money goes into. It's easy to just say, I have a $50,000 marketing budget, $3,500 a month, or something along those lines. However, all the money doesn't spend the same. There's the first bucket, which are your foundational assets. And that means things like building a new website, setting up your paid search campaign, rebranding the practice, creating some internal marketing assets. These are things that you need to get the phone to ring in the first place. These are typically one-time expenditures, I would say with the exception of websites. Website standards change so quickly. Typically, you need to redesign, reskin your website every 2 to 3 years these days. Pardon me, but it is not a recurring fee every month. Then you have your media dollars. I also include subscriptions in this. So media dollars are things like your Google Ads budget, your Facebook ads budget. If you're boosting something on Instagram or Pinterest, and then your subscriptions for things that are marketing related products. If you're using Weave, for example, portion of this could be considered a part of your marketing budget because it does things that are marketing related. You might have a email newsletter that goes out every month. You might have a referral request or review request that goes out from these platforms. So it's fair to consider them in your marketing budget. And then the third part of your money is what is called marketing management. And that is the actual execution of the lead generation strategies, things that require a lot of close ongoing attention. So your search engine optimization, your paid search management, your social media management, things like that are going to be ongoing once you got your foundation up and running. So kind of consider how you're going to drop your money into those three different buckets. Now, we do not have unlimited funds. I get that. Again, married to it. I live and breathe it every single day. So I'm a big believer in empowering practices with whatever DIY type strategies that they can do. So I want to give you just a couple of suggestions. I have a whole lecture, like 2 hours on DIY strategies that we can do at another time. I'm just going to give you a couple quick highlights. One is putting chat on your website. Patients want to engage with you, but they are not ready to pick up the phone and have a conversation. So they love online chat. They can ask a question. There are free chat apps. You do not need to spend what some of these companies are charging, $500 a month for someone to monitor your chat. You're going to get a couple of chats a day. What's really nice, what I particularly love about this one, talk.to, and it's TAWK.to. It's a free chat app. And you can just have the application open in a browser on your website, and your team can be doing whatever it is that they're doing, checking out patients. When somebody pops onto your chat, you're going to actually get a little ding dong, a doorbell that lets you know that somebody is on chat so that they can quickly go take care of it. So they don't need to sit there and monitor it 24/7. It's a really easy DIY strategy that's going to help you convert more patients. Social media should definitely be done by practices. We absolutely train practices on social media. We have do it for them strategies, but in order for it to be truly authentic and really resonate with patients and build your audience and the loyalty to your brand, it needs to be as personal as possible. So I recommend having a social media calendar, and it can be something really simple like this. This is actually one you can download on our website. If you go to goldenproportions.com/resources, you'll see the tab that says resources. Just look for the social media calendar, and it just gives you inspiration for each day. I promise this is so much easier for your team than every day having to think, what am I going to post now? If all they have to know is on Friday, I have to come up with a fun fact, that's a lot easier than just, what happened in the practice this week? So super easy DIY strategy. Then you can manage your own website often and save yourself money when it comes to updates. Most every website is built on some sort of a common content management system. That's what CMS stands for. Things like WordPress, which is what we build all of our websites on, Drupal, Joomla. There's a couple of other platforms out there. And often these are open source platforms, and your website company should give you access so that you, your team, can go in and update new team members that are added, or you've added a new piece of technology and you want to highlight it. If you have new patient offers that rotate, that can be done by your team. If you're doing your own blogging, or you want to add patients to your smile gallery, or you've just captured an incredible testimonial from a patient who had a smile makeover, all of those can be done by your team, easily uploaded so that you don't have to spend money on hourly updates. And I'm such a huge fan of this. Use what you already pay for. So many of you have invested in expensive platforms like Weave and Swell and Dental Intel and RevenueWell, and you don't often get everything out of them. These are really extensive platforms. From the first time that they build their platform, it might just be about reviews. But in order to stay competitive, most of these platforms keep adding new features. It's what makes you want to stick with them versus somebody else. The thing is, when it comes to being trained on new technology, humans, as a general rule, actually only retain about 15 to 20% of what they learn in that initial training. And the problem is that's where a lot of platforms just sort of let you go. And so you end up using one primary or two primary features of this, when in reality, there's so much more that it can do for you from a marketing perspective. So I recommend that you put a recurring date on your calendar once a month, once every other month. Have your team member contact this platform, your customer service advocate, and say, Teach me one new thing about your platform. Take the time to learn it, get used to incorporating it into your internal marketing for your patients, get used to it, kind of stair step the process, and then you can go back and learn yet another thing. So you're going to get a lot more value out of something you're already paying for. Now, the third step towards your success is actually looking at the strategies and tactics. I'm going to take you through the 6 stages of the marketing funnel and show you some examples, just a couple of examples, not going to overwhelm you because there's a lot of things that you can do. Now, Sun Tzu says, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, but tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. However, what I say, a tactic without a strategy is just a shiny object. And tactics are what many practices spend their time investing in. That is, I heard from a friend that direct mail works really well, or I was told that social media marketing funnels are the way to go. But if there isn't a strategy behind it, the why, am I targeting the right patient? Does this meet the goal for my practice? It's a lot of wasted time, effort, and money. So let's talk about the marketing funnel. This concept of the marketing funnel is universal to literally any business. I don't care if I was going to go help market Coca-Cola or Amazon or anybody else. It's important that you check the boxes. Now, this is a little bit adjusted specifically for dental practices, but the stages are relatively the same. The first one is brand awareness. Then comes lead generation and lead conversion, the new patient experience, retention of the investment you've made in your marketing, and actual advocacy from those patients. There is an order to these 6 for a reason, because it goes down the funnel. And what happens is many practices have a tendency to just want to put all of their money right in stage 2, lead generation. And they fail to see all of the follow-up that has to happen in order to truly get those people to become patients. If all you care is about making the phone ring, I promise your cost per lead, your cost per new patient, your lifetime value average for a patient is going to be nominal compared to what it could be. So strategies that you can get into from this first stage of the funnel for brand awareness, everything from logo design and signage, some internal collateral, what does your on hold message sound like, community events, just going out and networking the community. Social media is a top of the funnel strategy. It is brand awareness. It is not always about generating new patients. Great examples, some of our favorite logos that I've done over the years. But what's important when it comes to a brand, you might have an absolutely beautiful logo, but if you're not incorporating it into absolutely everything that you do, then your patients aren't getting the brand experience. So I'll give you an example. This was a logo for the Academy of Chairside Assisting. And here is how it can be basically applied to everything from your website, your giveaways like a mug and a t-shirt, your handouts, your internal marketing, all of these elements, you see that consistent look and feel, not just the logo, but that overall concept of your brand is carried through everything. Now, community awareness, this is also a great DIY strategy. This is an example of a practice out in Chicago that has done an amazing job. It's an emerging DSO that, pardon me, that has an annual Easter egg hunt in their community. It takes not that much time and effort for them. You can see there's obviously thousands of eggs out, but the turnout that they have from their community, from the parents, from the kids, is incredible brand awareness. Simple thing to do, great feedback from the community, and an easy way to engage with future patients, and they always get appointments out of this. Second stage of the funnel is your lead generation. This is where most of you gravitate to thinking you need to put all of your eggs, so to speak, in this basket. However, this is not where I want you to spend all of your time and energy. This is where you're going to spend probably the majority of your ongoing money, because this is the management of it or the actual media costs, but it's not everything. So classic lead generation tactics are things from Google ads and social media ads, direct mail, traditional advertising like radio, television, print, billboards, your website, but lead generation also comes out of search engine optimization and what is called conversion rate optimization. SEO and CRO work hand in hand. So here's some examples of beautiful websites that we've done. But what's really important is that we aren't focusing just on the appearance of the website, but on the actual user experience within the website. Also examples, traditional advertising, making sure that you are standing out, whether you've got direct mail, billboards. Some of you may have seen this billboard before. This is actually one we did many, many years ago for a client. It has been knocked off dozens, if not hundreds of times around the country. So we take some pride in that. If you've seen this, the original concept was ours. But doing something great to just grab somebody's attention can be a great lead generation tactic. Now, I mentioned SEO and CRO. Search engine optimization is the act of doing all of the things with your website that provide a great user experience so that Google says, okay, you deserve to be at the top. When a new patient is looking for you, we know there's significantly more traffic that goes to the #1 position than somebody who's on the second page. What's more important, or equally as important, about 50% of your energy should go into SEO, but the other 50% needs to go into CRO, because that is, somebody lands on your website. If they don't like your website, if they don't find it easy to use, if they can't quickly schedule, you have lost all of that investment in SEO. So conversion rate optimization and having an agency that's constantly measuring that, engaging with that, finding ways to improve it is a huge part of your lead generation. We have a great free resource on our website that is a conversion rate optimization checklist. That are some really quick things. You can download this checklist, compare it against your own site, and find some immediate opportunities to improve your conversion rates. Totally free, go download that one. Now, lead conversion, just like SEO and CRO have to work together, lead generation and lead conversion have to work together, because what good is the lead if they don't become a patient? But there's more to lead conversion than just literally getting the appointment. So we strongly recommend the use of call tracking. As a matter of fact, we use it on any kind of marketing that we're doing. It's included for free with all of our marketing. But teaching your team how to do a better job of converting those calls. There's some great trainers out there. We love Jenny Poppy of Poppy Practice Management. There's a number of great consultants we can refer you to that will help get your team trained on converting those calls. But another part of lead conversion are tools that don't necessarily require interaction with a human. And that can be online scheduling, the online chat, which we talked about, using social proof in your website. Social proof are things like patient cases, testimonials, videos from patients. All of that helps a patient to feel like, okay, I'm not the guinea pig, the first person in this practice. Someone else has tried it. They trust that this is the right place to be. So this is where I want to spend my time. And then ultimately custom photography and videography, because it provides authenticity that really helps somebody to convert. We have done extensive studies on video and photography using custom versus stock, and the amount of engagement time on a website and where the mouse is hovering is significantly more, like immeasurably more, on a real authentic photo, even if it's just a headshot of the doctor versus any kind of stock photography. So I strongly encourage these. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Call tracking. Our call tracking platform, Smart Market Dental, tracks every incoming call from a lead generation source, and we convert these calls into text so that you can see what they are. These conversions are done automatically, so if you see something in red, that's because the computer isn't completely sure if that's the right word, but it gives you really good context for the conversation. But what I wanted to point out here is why it is so important not just to track the call and say, how many calls did I get, but to either listen to the call or read the call transcript, because you'll see where I have highlighted here where the patient says, I was wondering, can I make an appointment? I can't tell you how often I hear that in call recordings. You would think it would be automatic that your team would be telling a patient, okay, let's get you scheduled. more often than not, it is this scenario. And that is a great indication that you need to have some call conversion training because you're going to lose opportunities this way. We don't want to have to ask for the sale ourselves. Another great lead conversion tactic, like I mentioned, the online scheduling, is LocalMed. I get 0 from LocalMed, but I have to say I'm a huge fan of their product. And there's simple things that you can do with LocalMed to get more out of it rather than just putting it on your website. There's a widget where you can actually add it to your Google My Business listing because people we know are going there to find directions, to read your reviews. They might as well just schedule immediately as it is. And then that custom photography and videography, this is authenticity. This tells a patient the people that they are going to be spending time with, and that is ultimately what is most important to them. Now, the 4th stage of the funnel is that new patient experience. And this is what happens on an internal basis. Everything from the new patient packet and making sure that your forms look professional and are branded, to maybe emailing your patients a video overview of the practice before they show up for their first appointment, or asking your patients to take your white glove checklist to see if your practice is doing everything possible to create an exceptional experience, or getting concierge training for your front desk team. Great example of internal literature. This is still valid actually for older patients. A lot of our restorative work comes out of patients that are 50s, 60s, and older. Their teeth have obviously had more wear, more decay over the years, so they have a better financial return on investment for us. But this is also a generation that didn't grow up digitally, and they still like to have some things to hold and read and go over. This is the example of the white glove test. Again, free resource on our website. You can download this. This is something you can print out and give to your patients and ask your patients to evaluate their new patient experience or even existing patients to make sure you are not overlooking things that are important to your patients. The next stage of the funnel is retention. What good is making the phone ring and bringing them in and giving them a great experience if we don't get them to come back? Otherwise, you are spending an awful lot of money for very little return. Retention ties into a couple of key strategies, being reactivation campaigns when you have patients who have been more than 12 to 18 months since their last appointment, using outreach services that can actually help you get these scheduled, and keeping some regular engagement with them for brand awareness. Whether it's email newsletters, birthday videos that go out, there's a lot of great things that you can do. When you're doing a reactivation or reminder postcard, I love for them to be, and this can be email as well, bold, bright, something that is different, that's really going to attract attention and stand out in the pile of mail that we're getting. Although frankly, it's a diminishing pile, which means that your postcard is going to stand out more and more these days. Now, and again, I get 0 kickback from this. I'm a big fan of CallForce. CallForce has an outgoing reappointment service where they can take your list of patients that are 12 months or more overdue since their last appointment. They will do an outbound call to get people on your schedule. They'll directly schedule for you, and you're really only charged per new patient they get scheduled. So it's a win-win for absolutely everybody. Great service, highly recommend it. The last stage of the funnel is advocacy. Advocacy is using your patients to become walking billboards about why other patients need to come to your practice. And the tactics for this include things like automated reviews, requests for referrals. You can do referral contests, and just in general, getting written or video testimonials from your patients to use on your website, in your social media, etc. I wanted to stop and just take a quick second and talk about reviews, because we all assume all we have to do is just hit the button and automatically request a review from a patient, and that's all we need. But there's a couple of key things that are really important when it comes to reviews that your patients and Google specifically need to see. So it's what we call the 4 R's. The first is recent. Google is looking at how old your latest review is. If your latest review is 3 or 4 or 5 months old, it is going to hurt your ability to rank in Google search, simply because it looks like your practice isn't particularly active and that your patients don't care about it. Google's also looking at how regular those reviews are. So not just recent, but they want to make sure you don't have a big spike of reviews all in one month, and then it kind of goes flat for another couple of months because your team sort of forgot to start asking for those reviews again. They are looking for, even if it's 3 or 4 a month, if you have those consistently, that counts more than necessarily just the quantity of reviews. Google is looking at relevancy. They're actually reading your patient comments. They want to make sure that these comments are relevant to the business that you've identified yourself as. So ask your patients to really write about their experience. What did they like about you as a dentist? What did they like about the practice? Why would they recommend you? And then the last of the 4 R's is responsiveness. And they are looking for people who are responding to reviews, and I mean every single review, very quickly. This is important not just to Google, but also to the prospective patients. So if I'm a patient, for example, who has written a negative review, I am looking for you to write a response within 1 week. Because if you don't write a response, it tells me that my feedback isn't important. But not only that, it also tells the next person who reads my negative review that you don't care about my business and my feedback. So simply writing a response that lets somebody know you have heard them, you've acknowledged that there was a problem from that patient's perspective, whether you agree with it or not, and that you are looking into it and taking action. So make sure that you respond to every review, positive and negative. Now, if you have a bunch of negative reviews that have been sitting for years, don't go back, don't wake up the sleeping dog. Let's leave those alone. But commit from this day forward that you're going to be regularly checking those reviews. And if you see a negative or a positive, that you're going to write a response. This also means not just Google, but I would get into that same habit for everything else, anywhere else that a review appears. Now, we just went through a lot of strategies, a lot of tactics. And as Professor Michael Porter says, the essence of strategy is actually choosing what not to do. You could get overwhelmed trying to do all of this. It's more important to do a few things right than it is to do a lot of things a little bit okay. So let's talk about these timelines. As Henry Ford always said, vision without execution is just hallucination. Writing it down is a big, big part of getting these goals to actually happen, but then you do actually have to take action. You have to actually execute. So there's a couple of things that I recommend. Once you've figured out what tactics you're going to incorporate to accomplish your strategy, look at the what, the when, and the who. So the what is at least pick your top 3 strategies. Put all of your focus and attention there. Now, if you have time and attention and budget to be able to do more than that, great, but make sure that you're concentrating on your top 3. Then let's put some when in order. You need to know when these strategies actually have to execute in order to reach your goals. So if your goal is to hit 30 new patients a month by the last month of 2021, you need to get kind of a move on that pretty quickly. We're already in April. You're not going to hit that goal very quickly. So you need to get that strategy and that tactic moving fast. And then finally, determine who has ownership and responsibility of the budget for this particular tactic, who gets to make the decisions to move this forward, if it's the right message, the right brand, whatever that is, and who owns the timeline. Decision by committee is probably one of the worst things that you can do. It is better to have one person who owns that responsibility and speaks for the practice. Get your team involved. Have a regular weekly team meeting. It can be monthly if you absolutely can't handle weekly, but have everybody report on your marketing initiatives, taking a look at that KPI dashboard to make sure that you are making progress on the execution of your tactics and your timeline. Now, the actual implementation. This is one of my favorite pictures because I had a great article in Forbes probably about a year and a half ago that said, stop having a one-night stand with your marketing. This is kind of equivalent to the shiny object syndrome. It's very common for practices to hop around and work with a bunch of different agencies. It's kind of like not having a committed relationship. And what happens is that when you're not in a committed relationship, you don't get the fulfillment that you're actually looking for. Instead, you get a lot of little great experiences one time and then things disappear. So I recommend that you find one provider who can do everything that you need. But here's a couple of things you need to look for whoever you are interviewing. Make sure you have chemistry with this person. This is genuinely a relationship. Whoever is going to be your representative, you're going to spend some time talking with them, working with them. You have to actually like them. So no different than a relationship, you need some chemistry. Make sure that they understand your industry. They have to speak dental. You do not want to teach somebody what all on four means. I promise you, you have limited time as it is, as we already talked about all those balls that are already in the air. You want a full service company because no marketing is foolproof. Sometimes you execute a strategy and you find out this was not the right strategy for this audience, with this budget in this market, whatever it is, and you need to be able to pivot. So ideally, you have one company who can then say, this isn't working the way that we want. We need to change tactics completely. And you want to make sure that they fit your budget. They have to either be, affordable or have a payment plan or something that allows you to get what you need for the investment that you've got. There is, obviously you want high quality, you want custom, that's all important, but you shouldn't have to pay through the nose for it. And then this last element, no matter who you're working with, if you are paying somebody for any kind of a strategy, there should be complete transparency with your data. If you are paying somebody $1,500 a month to manage your Google Ads budget, you darn well better be able to get an exact report that says exactly how much money was spent in each campaign and that your full budget was spent, as opposed to maybe they spent $300 and they kept the difference. I do know, unfortunately, there are agencies out there that are doing that, dental and otherwise. Not something we do. To get a really successful relationship with whatever marketing provider you work with, there's a couple of things that I recommend that are going to make you more successful. One, delegate. Take the best use of your time and put it where you're going to get the greatest result. And that means delegate the things that are not in your wheelhouse, that are not your strengths. Delegate them to a team member, to your agency. Delegation and leverage is how your practice will grow. Decisiveness is key. Decision by committee is not going to advance your practice. There's a classic rule when it comes to entrepreneurs that says the most successful entrepreneurs make their decisions extremely quickly. They have measured this. This was a Harvard Business Review study, and they determined that successful entrepreneurs make 70% of their decisions correctly. And you might be thinking, well, heck, that's 30% of my decisions that are incorrect every time. But here is the difference, is that because these successful entrepreneurs are measuring their strategy and because they make their decisions so quickly, they can very quickly see if a strategy or a decision was successful or not. And then they stop and they make another decision and they keep moving forward. So by sheer odds and averages, statistically, you are much more likely to be successful if you can be decisive and not have to just spend a ton of time agonizing over a decision with a lot of people's input. You, as the practice owner, you know what you need. Trust your gut instinct. Prioritization. If growing your practice is a priority, then your marketing needs to be a priority. Make time for this every day or every week. Block schedule, just like you block schedule for a new patient, block schedule 2 hours every Friday in order to review what your marketing agency needs from you, to provide them with whatever assets they need in order to complete a project and keep moving forward. This goes right along with getting you that timeline that you're looking for so that you can accomplish your goals. And then finally, accountability. You should hold your agency accountable to delivering exactly what they promised you. And by the same token, they should be holding you accountable to providing what they need in order to deliver the results that you are looking for. Accountability is a two-way street. You do not want to get involved with somebody who is playing the blame game, that there's blame and excuses and denial. That is all below the line behavior. That is not how you want to have a relationship with somebody. You want to work with a company and you yourself operate above the line, which is ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Now, before you launch, you've come up with your goals and your budget and your timeline and all of your tactics, and you're implementing. But just before you launch, there's a couple of things that I want you to do. First, we had you go in and put down those baseline measurements. Now I want you to measure those baselines again, because it's been a couple of months from the time you established your goals to when you have actually been able to create the assets that you need to launch this marketing. So let's get a new baseline so that we know our exact starting point and how long it has taken us from get to point A to point B when it comes to the goals. Another key thing, let your team know anytime you're initiating new marketing. This seems like the most obvious thing in the world, but because we listen to literally millions of phone calls, it is not unusual for us to hear a patient ask about a new patient offer that the team has no clue about, which doesn't make your practice look very good. So let them know if you've launched a new website. Let them know if you've started a paid search campaign, or if there's a new patient offer somewhere on a direct mail postcard that's about to land in a mailbox. Put that offer on a sticky note right at the front desk. Just make sure everybody is in the loop so that you present yourself the best way possible when those new patients call your practice. The final stage of this 6-step funnel is your measurement and your adjustment, because if you're not measuring, it's not going to get improved. This is a well-known factor when it comes to marketing, or frankly, anything. I don't care if you're trying to lose weight or get a degree. Everything has to be measured in some way in order for it to be improved, because it focuses our attention. The only thing I'm really going to talk to you about here when it comes to measurement and adjustment in terms of what you can and should be doing is picking up the phone. You spend all of this time and energy to make the phone ring, and yet 35% of all calls, new patients and existing patients, go to voicemail. And you might be saying to yourself right now, well, my patients leave messages. That's because you're only hearing the messages from the few patients that leave messages. Actually, 75% of people who get your voicemail will hang up and not leave a message at all. And all they are doing is picking up the phone and going right to the next practice that is on their list, whether it's on Google or in the yellow pages, however it is, they are moving their way down the line. Now, if you are recording these calls, which again, strongly recommend, you should be listening to these calls and grading them. Find out what are common objections from your patients and create some scripts for your team that help them start with yes. If a patient says, do you take Delta Dental? And your answer is no, we don't. What if your answer was, yes, we help all of our patients maximize their insurance benefits. We have a lot of patients who use Delta Dental with their practice, and let me tell you how we help them get the most out of their plan. You didn't say that you accepted Delta, you simply found a way to say yes, which keeps the conversation moving forward. I promise you, the moment that you say, no, we don't accept Delta Dental, the next thing you're going to hear is a ringtone. Now, when it comes to measurement, this is a platform that we built personally. I'm very passionate about this, Smart Market Dental. It connects to your practice management software, and it allows us to tie any particular marketing tactic to a call that came from that particular tactic to an actual new patient that came into the practice and the value of that patient, which lets us automatically determine the cost per lead, the cost per new patient, and your actual return on investment, which holds us to a higher standard by saying we are putting you in a strategy that is definitely performing or not. But it also helps us to see if, for example, you have challenges converting those leads, and then we can get you connected to a consultant that can help you with that. Or if maybe there's a case presentation issue, and again, we'll get you connected with somebody that can help you with that. But until we measure, we just don't know. So we measure everything. So ultimately, you've got this dashboard. And this dashboard that you're tracking every single month and you're reviewing, the dashboard decides what you do. If you've got call tracking on every strategy and you're giving it a minimum of 3 months to work, then you know you're pivoting based on trends and not spikes. Pardon me, I am getting over a cold. So just a reminder, go to our website, download the free marketing resources that are available to you. And for any of you who are ready to delegate, we develop completely custom marketing plans for practices. That is 50% off for any of you who are attending this webinar. Expires the end of the month. Simply go to our website, go to the contact page and schedule with Erica, and she'll get you started. So I want to thank you for your time today. I'm going to stop sharing, and if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them for you. All right, so let me see where we are, if we've got any questions. Looks like we do not yet. And again, I apologize for my head cold. Thank you for putting up with the cough. I'm going to encourage all of you to reach out to us with any questions that you've got. My email address was on that last slide. It's xana@goldenproportions.com. I am more than happy to answer any questions you have, or again, reach out to Erica or anybody on our account team. We have recorded this presentation. We will be sending it out to everyone again, so that hopefully if you were not taking notes fast enough, we've got you covered. So thank you very much for spending some time with us. Oh wait, I do see a question that pops in. What are my thoughts on ClickFunnels? Okay, great question. So ClickFunnels in and of themselves, you've got to be careful because they can be a shiny object strategy. If they are part of a larger plan and the ClickFunnel is driving patients towards a well-defined goal in terms of the right type of patient that you want to attract and the type of procedure that you're looking for, and you can track the impact of these patients on your practice, ClickFunnels are incredibly valuable, but they do not completely replace any and all other marketing. They should not be your only strategy. So hopefully that answers your question. Feel free to reach out to me directly. We can get into this deeper. I love ClickFunnels. Frankly, we use them in our own marketing. They are just should not be your one and only tactic that's out there. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, before I start coughing in everybody's ear again, thank you. Reach out to me again by email. You can go on live chat on our website. We'll send this recording out to you, and I appreciate your time today. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.